This podcast is powered by Pivotal Moments Media. Check out our education, content, and more at pivotalmomentsmedia.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Life After the Military, a show completely focused on reversing the trend of veteran suicide, homelessness, and problematic transitions by helping veterans transition from military to civilian life and strengthening the mental fitness of our active duty military members, veterans, and their families. Our show is powered by Pivotal Moments Media, an organization on a mission to strengthen mental fitness worldwide for all. Go check them out at pivotalmomentsmedia.com to learn more. My name is Lee Elias, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend and co-host, Howie Cohen. We are privileged to have our special guest, Teresa Shick, with us here today. Teresa was a military spouse of 19 years to her husband, Jerry, who was a retired Navy SEAL that served his country honorably for 24 years. Teresa served alongside her husband as an ombudsman at the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, and during her time as an ombudsman, my favorite word, Teresa advocated and supported command families, surviving spouses, and upheld the foundation of those who serve in the home front for 7 years. She has also volunteered and devoted her time and spirit to various military and naval special warfare charities, foundations, and fundraising events. Her unwavering dedication to our country's military families and spouses really cannot go unnoticed. It's one of the reasons we're bringing her here today. And in 2016, Teresa founded the Pillar Foundation to address the needs of the Naval Special Warfare spouse after service. Looking forward to talking about that. Teresa, it is truly our pleasure to have you here with us today. Welcome to Life After the Military.
Hello, so happy to be here. Morning, everybody.
It's good to have you. And like you said, down in Texas is where you are, which is awesome. And I'm sure we'll hear that accent today. Obviously, Howie and I are up in the Northeast. It's always wonderful when our two worlds can collide and we can have a good conversation without bringing up politics, sports, or anything else. So I'm looking forward to this. Teresa, first thing, we said it, you were a spouse for over 19 years, when your husband served in the Navy. Share with our audience how you both prepared and executed your transition out of the military into the private sector. I know it really tumultuous time. Let us know what went well, what didn't go well, what would you do differently, and what would you do, knowing what you know now?
That's a big question.
It is. It's a lot of questions too.
Yeah. We got to the point of about 19 years, when you sit down and look at each other and you say, okay, are we doing this or not? The plan was always, I follow him around. We go back to Texas because we're both from Texas. I'm East Texas, he's Houston, but we're going to Texas regardless. So 19 years came and I actually said, I don't think I'm ready. We're doing good. We had little kids. We have four kids. So they were all whatever they were, just born to elementary age.
Yeah, they were kids. Yeah.
They were kids. So we just weren't ready. It was good. We were good. The military community is your family. And I missed my family, but we just weren't ready. Hindsight, we should have probably gotten out at 20. We didn't know. So he enlisted for 4 more years. And during that time, the military, probably like 2 years out, sends him, Jerry, to tons of different workshops, private things. The Honor Foundation was a biggie that supports the SOC community, and working for his, what's your purpose? What's your passion? What do you want to be when you grow up? After you've done what you want to be when you grow up? All those things we did. Our transition was on paper perfect. We bought a house in Texas. We rented it out so we could have it. I came home and looked at schools. We, told the kids we were moving, the whole thing. We sold our house. We bought a house. We did everything you needed to do, golden on paper. And we picked up and we came to Texas after 24 and a half years, just before my oldest started high school, so we could have some sort of normalcy. The difference with the regular community, military community, and the enlisted SEAL community is we don't bebop around. We did San Diego, we did Virginia Beach, and that's it. So my kids weren't used to picking up and moving, though they're resilient, as everyone says. We had been in the same house the whole time. So driving away from Virginia Beach is where we were. I was viscerally having a reaction. I didn't want to leave these people. I didn't want to leave my neighborhood. It was such a good community, and it was completely my family chosen. So it was rough. I always say transition's a kick in the pants, but I tell everybody. And it was rough. That drive away, I sobbed, the kids sobbed, Jerry was sad. We did not anticipate it to be such a a moment, an emotional, almost devastating, like leaving. Hindsight, you got to get out of there. But it's just nothing you can prepare for. Paper, I mean, like I said, we were golden on paper, but we did not anticipate the emotional toll that it would take on my husband. I did not anticipate that I would have this loss of identity that the service member goes through. I thought, I'll be cool. I'm going home. I'm moving to my family's neighborhood, but it just shakes you to the core.
Right. I'll tell you right now, I experienced similar things when my wife separated, and my situation was I was coming from another country, basically.
Wow.
We were living in the United Kingdom, and my thoughts were the same of I'll be fine. It's not a big deal. We did move all the time, and it's like, I'll just go back to the States. And I had the biggest reverse culture shock of my life. You spend 3 years in another country, you come back, it's like things have changed a little bit for you. You might not realize it. And you're leaving your friends and your life and kind of everything that's normal. And suddenly you're back into an environment you think you're going to fit into. I think that's what messed me up is I know this environment and I didn't. And it took me a full year to kind of mentally get back to a place where I felt comfortable. And look, you said it's devastating. It shakes you to your core. I feel like I experienced those same feelings. And it makes you question yourself at times, almost of like, what? I remember thinking, what is going on? Like, why can I not figure this out? And it just took some time and kind of some reflection of, hey, you're not fully okay right now, and you need to kind of address that. And I'll tell you what is one thing I'm proud of with my wife and I is, we kind of leaned into each other, a lot. And that's the other thing too, is, when you're in a position where I don't want to say you're secluded, but you're in a very small environment, and suddenly the world opens up to you, that can be hard too. So, especially when you're going to the country of Texas, to
civilian land. I mean, not that where I live is mostly civilian,
Right.
My husband's the only Navy SEAL in town.
Wow.
And there's 150,000 people, but that's weird, right? Everyone.
How could they understand, right?
I didn't
How could they
understand the disconnect between military and civilian, just attitude.
Right.
The way my kids spoke, the things like they don't say guns, they say weapons. My children,
Right.
We don't say car, we say vehicle.
Right.
When I talk to my girlfriends and I'm running late, I go, can we move this to the right a little bit? And they're like, what does that mean? I go, move it to the right. I'm going to be late. I need to move it 15 minutes. Just those words that we said, and attitudes. And my kids would come home going, Mom, these kids at school aren't welcoming me. Nobody invited me over. And I go, I know, me too. Nobody's inviting me over. Like, where's my brownies? It was just a weird non-welcome wagon. When the military throws you such a welcome wagon.
Oh, military families totally stick together. And when you leave that and, the civilian world, I mean, I don't want to speak for every community, but that camaraderie is not as prevalent, I would say. By the way, just to note, it's funny. When I was growing up in Philly, I'd say use guys, we got to get going. And it's funny. I'll say y'all once in a while because we lived in the South for several years. And look, let's just be honest. It's very convenient and fits at times.
Right.
And then another one from living in England is I'll start sentences by saying the word right sometimes, like, right. Like in England, that's what they do. And it's funny because I remember when I got back, a friend of mine said to me, you're talking different. I'm like, what do you mean? I said, you're speaking, you have an American accent, but you're speaking in a totally different cadence. Because I was speaking differently. But these are little things that can be a little weird to people around you.
Yeah.
You start saying, mate, y'all, and right before every sentence. It's like, who are you and where are you from?
Yeah.
So it takes some time.
Yeah. Apparently somebody asked my kids where we were from when we first got back to Texas, and they were like, Virginia. And they said, oh, we hear it. I was like, what do you hear? It's, I don't know. Yeah. There's just the whole, the best, you said lazy, y'all. I say sometimes y'alled. That's y'all would have.
Yeah.
Y'all would have. That's so lazy.
They're all better than use guys because nobody outside of Philly really understands that one. But I'm going to throw it over to Howie Cohen because he is here and I'm hogging all the mic time. But we know this on this show, whenever another spouse comes on, I kind of grasp to it because as a male military spouse, honestly, there's not many people that can relate to that. And obviously military spouses in general can. So I'm always excited to talk to somebody else who kind of gets it.
Hey, Teresa, what I'm kind of interested in drawing out is, we talk about this a lot on this show when we're talking to men and women who served in uniform. about a loss of identity, a loss of purpose, a loss of community. You're kind of identifying that from a spouse point of view. So what did you do to overcome that? How did you handle that? And maybe you can share with other spouses or folks in our audience, maybe help them navigate that challenge that you and your husband and your children had to overcome. Maybe share with us what you did.
Basically, I stopped pretending that I was okay and started talking about it. The more, it could have been on a private Seal Wives Facebook page, and I would just be like, guys, I'm not okay. I'm not okay because my husband's not okay. My kids aren't okay. And then I got someone going, me either. And we also moved away. And the more I just kind of word vomited my feelings, more people came back to me going, me too. I'm not okay either. What do we need to be doing? And then I just started telling my family, like, we've got something going on in our house. We're all reeling from our move home, successfully transitioned from the military, all limbs intact. Nobody comes out unscathed is what you realize, even though we looked good on paper. My sister said to me, our marriage looks like a robot marriage. And I said, what does that mean? And she goes, I don't know. You guys are just like logistically there for each other, but you don't feel like you're on the same team. And she was right, because our whole world was a calendar, a deployment, a pre-deployment, a post-deployment. I couldn't plan anything with him. And then we're like, we land in Texas and the world's our oyster, and we don't know how to do it because nobody told us where to go and what to wear and what time to be there. So I just started talking about it and was being very honest with everyone around me and said, I'm struggling. We're going to get through it, but you got to give us some time. And the more I just said it, the more people came out saying, me too, me too.
Wow.
And now mental health is such a topic. This was only 5 years ago, but it's still kind of, your husband has a TBI, you don't really talk about
there's
that.
a stigma surrounding it for sure.
Yeah. And now it's like, your husband's got a TBI, me too. Let's talk about it. Let's make fun of them together, whatever. But I think just the more honest you can be with your spouse, with your kids. I had to tell the kids, I'm like, guys, I know this is hard. I know you miss your friends. We'll go back over the summer, but let's just stick together and get through this. Like, we wanted to be here. We made it. We made it. But like, we don't want to be here anymore. I used to dream about going back to Virginia Beach. And now I go back there and I get real like anxiety, and I'm like, oh, this is the place that all went down. I can't. Like, we got out, like I'm going back to prison or something. But that'd be my advice. Just keep talking about it and be honest and tell everybody it's tough, because how else are you going to get help?
Well, and that's the community aspect that Howie was referencing to. Again, there's the three. There's identity, purpose, and community. And I can tell just from our brief conversation so far, the community aspect is very important to you. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that when you were leaving your community, but the key is, and whether you realize this or not, in my opinion, is that you realized you needed that. And so you started to talk. And my guess is you have found that community. You've actually created that community. But my point is you leaned into something's wrong. And this is what I want the audience to hear. Something's wrong. I have to talk about it. All right. It can be incredibly hard to do that. All right. Especially for men at times. Mm-hmm. Right. But you have to find that community of people that's going to understand and talk. And there are people out there that will help you 100%. Right. And especially from veterans. Right. One of the reasons we have this show is to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, civilians, obviously, like, civilians are weird. They're not. They're just normal. We're the weirdos, as it turns out. But talking to the civilians wasn't doing it for me. So then the whole point of me creating the Pillar Foundation was because I'm sitting in the house we bought with the family I need, and I'm lonely and I can't find my people, and I can't talk about 99% of the stuff I want to talk about,
right?
Just because of what my husband did. So I needed to find, I was like, where do the girls live in Texas? Where are they? And I thought, if I feel this way, happy in Texas, there's women everywhere. They're sitting in their hometown missing their military sisters, the sisterhood, if you will. So that was really the whole point in creating it. I thought a really simple idea is, let's get them back together. You live in Nebraska, you got a pod of military wives somewhere. You can find a military wife anywhere, and it's an instant connection, right? Just a camaraderie, and we can breathe. So I started tracking the SEAL wives. Where do you guys live? Where have you landed? Do you want to have lunch? Simple, like, let's bring back that community piece. Because, you have little kids, you don't talk about Bruno, that whole thing. There's like, we can't talk about Bruno. that was like,
Right.
who can I speak to? So I had to just go find them and kind of recreate it.
Right. And I'll just say, Howie, before I throw it back to you, for those of you listening, whether you're civilian or a spouse, Teresa, I'm not sure there's any way for a spouse to really effectively explain to someone who wasn't in the service what that experience is like.
Mhm.
And it's a wonderful experience. I have said this for years, and I'm so thankful for my wife's time in the service. I really am. Just the lifelong friends and the seeing different parts of the world. But you meet someone who maybe hasn't left a 100-mile radius for their entire life, and which is nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But how do you begin to tell them, you look like an explorer to them? So yeah, these are the challenges that are faced, and again, it's you go through it. And again, for those of you listening that are the active duty member, your spouse and kids are gonna go through this with you. So you got to lean into each other. You got to understand that. Do not assume you're going to be fine. I do not know anyone who's transitioned and was just like, yep, that was great. Okay, let's keep going.
Absolutely. They're
I
lying.
don't know.
Those
I
people
don't,
are
yeah,
lying.
I don't know anyone who's done that.
No.
But I do know everyone that was, wow, that was way harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And we really do need to find each other. Again, last thing for me is, and how I'm throwing it to you, is just like one of my best friends, and I speak to him every day, was another male military spouse.
Mhm.
And again, there's very few of us. So it's like, how could anyone understand what that was like? So, I mean, we are best friends. We're brothers, basically. So I love that you refer to it as a sisterhood. That's why I'm bringing that up, because it's shared experience and it's understanding. And again, as you said, their husbands or wives may be going through some things that a civilian might not be, that they're just, I don't want to say they're not going to understand. I don't think that's fair. It's just not experience they're going to have. Right. So the relation is not there. Anyway, Howie, go ahead, please, guys.
Yeah,
Tell us
hey,
about-
Go ahead.
go
Sorry.
ahead, Teresa.
No, I was gonna say my favorite is when somebody goes, "Well, my husband travels on business." Oh,
Yeah.
that's cute.
That's nice.
Great,
Yeah.
good for you.
Yeah.
Did he
To
is he
where?
gonna die there or no?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you get to speak to him when he's on his trip?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, again, not taking anything away from any civilian. It's a different experience. It's very hard to share. Yeah.
Hey, Teresa, kind of going back to, it sounded like you guys had a very well planned and executed process in the transition.
Mhm.
What I'm interested is, because what I find many times is the service member sometimes may do a really good job of planning and preparing, but doesn't always do a good job of bringing the spouse into the process. I'm kind of curious what role you played in the planning and preparation and execution of the transition. Maybe talk about that, what did go well, or maybe, had it to do over again, maybe where you could have been more a part of the planning and preparation process. Maybe you can share some of those experiences with our audience as well.
My end of it is just logistics, because we didn't understand that there was an emotional aspect in this transition. We viewed it as check, do this, do that, do that. And so most of it falls on me because I'm the one at home, right? Not understanding his emotional toll that was having. I knew it would be hard on him to take that uniform off. Yesterday you're in, tomorrow you're not. His uniform is his resume, and then it's gone. I knew it'd be hard. I didn't know it'd be hard for the 6 of us as a family versus just him. But I'm in the background taking care of everything. And at one point he said, "You're not helping me with my transition." And I said, "Well, I can't be you. I can't go to the VA for you. I can't go to the TAPS class. I can't do these things for you. I don't know how to help you," which is a common occurrence I hear from my girlfriends. Like, I don't know how to help him. And I say, you have to just say out loud, "I know this is hard for you. Let's talk about your day. How was your class that you just took? How did your interviews go?" It's just, we weren't told to talk about it. We were just told to do this, check this box, do this, do that. You'll be fine. And so we land here and we thought we'd be fine. But it's really difficult as a wife. How do you turn around and help your service member transition when you literally can't be there for him? I can't go to the brain clinic, I think it just all, the whole conversation is going to go back to communication. You just have to keep talking. How was your day, hon? How are you feeling? I'm sorry you don't get to be what you wanted to be when you grew up anymore. I feel awful for the service members who have to just decide on a second career. I don't know how you do that. Which is the whole reason they go through those programs. Let's find your new purpose. Let's find your new passion.
Now, did you have the opportunity to attend any of those yourself as well? Because
Yeah.
I know several, and I'm familiar with many of the ones that you mentioned.
Mhm.
I know now it seems like they're opening it up to spouses more.
Yeah.
And I realize, your experience is about 5 years ago or so.
Mhm.
Did you have even the opportunity or even the interest or the desire to participate in any of those opportunities with them?
So I went on a couple, we went on several family retreats, but then I specifically went to the Commit Foundation with him. We flew up to Whitefish, Montana, and that was all about transition. But again, it was all about his transition.
Right.
Mhm.
And how I can support his transition. It was never spoken that I'm going to have a transition. It's like, I guess I just thought I'd be okay since I wasn't a service member, or we'll be fine, or we know how to roll the punches, maybe. I don't know. Honor Foundation does invite the spouses to come. And now they do invite 100%. You can audit every class. You don't get the executive coaching and things like that, but you are able to be there and listen, I suppose. Take what you can get out of it. So something with the Pillar Foundation we offer is much what the Honor Foundation is doing, is we offer executive coaching to the spouses, both a little bit before they get out to a couple years after, to figure out, what do you want to do now? You hear the spouses say, it's my turn, which I don't like that
Right.
saying. It's not my turn. It should be our turn. Like,
Right.
now we have a time to shine together. But what do you do? What do you do? What do I do? I'm not a military spouse anymore. Like, what am I? And I was Ombudsman for so long that the day that I stepped down from that too, I was like, oh, what do I do? I love to help people. I love to connect people. I like to solve problems and share resources. And suddenly I had nobody to do that for, except for my kids, but that was
Which is a full-time job.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But they've got kid problems. I felt I still needed to be needed.
Yeah.
I still felt like I have so much to share. I can tell you guys, a senior spouse or a seasoned spouse or whatever as they call us. There's things that I could tell the spouse of day one. I felt like I need to just share this with everyone that I can. So I did that.
Teresa, I do want to tap on something you just said that I think is insanely important. And then I want to talk about how I was going to ask you about what you are doing now.
Mhm.
You said that I've seen this. A lot of spouses go, "It's my turn now." That is a recipe for disaster. I want all the spouses hearing that, and I want all the active duty hearing this, to understand I know what you mean. Like, let me say that first. I do understand what that means. Okay. Is that okay? I've dedicated a portion of my life to following your career. I would like the same opportunity. Totally get it. There is no way you're going to succeed at that by yourself and without the support of your spouse. I mean, the person who's active duty. All right. So when you leave, I know it might feel like that if it's my turn. But I love what you just said. No, it's our turn. Now we can move forward together and pursue stuff. And you have to have a lot of conversations. You have to be very honest with each other. I remember when we separated, and again, I have never, and I mean this, and I've told her this actually, and I want all the spouses to hear this, because I encourage you to do this. I have never once resented my wife's service and the fact that it made me pick up my bag, leave my career, and for over a decade, basically follow her around. And I did a lot in the service while we were there to stay active in my career field. But my point is, I never resented her for making me follow her. That's not how I looked at it.
Right.
That was a choice I made. Right. And I supported her. And my attitude was, I would like support back now so we can do this together.
Yeah.
But I just think that was a really important statement that you said. And I hear that a lot. I hear a lot. It's my turn. Like,
My turn. Yeah.
How do you think that feels to the other person,
Yeah.
when you say that? So it's in my opinion, it's a poor choice of words.
Mhm.
And that it really should be looked upon. So
Yeah,
Howie, sorry.
I don't know, Lee. I'm not sure I completely agree with that. And I'm going to
Yeah.
talk to you from the other side.
Sure,
having worn the uniform, right? Because I think what is very common unfortunately, I was guilty of this. I think many of us in uniform are guilty of this. Is I don't think we completely understand the sacrifices that our spouses make.
Sure.
Right. I think to some degree, we may take that for granted because we are so focused on our mission, our organization, and doing what we have to do to be successful and help the organization be successful. And we just, it kind of, some of us, I think, unfortunately, and again, I was guilty of this as well. So I'm not being critical, is we just expected all the other stuff was going to get taken care of. If we had a move from one location to the other, packing up the house, making, getting the kids ready, whatever. I mean, there's a myriad of things that go on in a household that we just expect that or think it's getting done and it's okay. And what I started to realize as I started nearing towards my retirement and transition was that my wife had made so many sacrifices for me and my career. And I knew that there are things that she wanted to do and was capable of doing. And so I kind of made a pact. And again, you're right, it is communication. Say, look, now it is, I basically said, now it is your turn, right? I mean, I'm still going to find a career after the military, but I want you to be able to pursue or have the opportunity to pursue and do the things that you wanted to do and maybe couldn't do to your full capacity because you were so focused on, helping me, get to where I needed to get in my career. So I guess my thought here is to the men and women in uniform is I think that's an opportunity for you to have that conversation with your spouse. If you know there are things that they have either set aside in their lives to support your career or things that now they want to do, I think it's an opportunity for you to have that conversation and then be there to support them like they were there to support you.
So Howie, this is what I'm saying. Teresa, you tell me if you agree. I think you are agreeing with us because, and the big difference here is you said to her, now it's your turn.
Right.
All right. Which essentially is, it's our time to push your career forward. You were thinking family first. What I'm talking about, and maybe I should have been more clear. I have seen spouses basically tell their active duty, your career's done. It's my turn to pursue mine, and I don't want to hear anything about it. And that's really what I'm referring to. And again, Teresa, I'm sure you've seen that as well. And you took a family forward approach, Howie, of you supported me. Now I'm going to support you. That is absolutely correct in my mind. And I just feel like there's a lot of couples out there in the military, which is you've never supported me or I've only supported you. You must support me. And that just becomes combative in nature. I hope I'm making that more clear. I see that a lot. And I personally don't think that's conducive to a good marriage.
No, I absolutely agree with. And I think it really comes down to, and Teresa hit the nail on the head. It's open, honest, candid communication, right?
Totally.
I think that is the critical thing. And because I know folks who I thought had the perfect marriage in the military. And then when the it happened to be a male, when he retired, he went on and had an extremely successful career post-military, and he and his wife got divorced, and the reason was that she lost her community, she lost her sense, all the things that Teresa just described for us about losing your identity, losing your sense of purpose, losing your community. She was an officer's wife and actually a general officer's wife. And that was how she identified herself. And when he got out, it was gone. He went on, was able to replace it with a very successful defense contracting position, and was very successful, but she lost everything. And that ended up, they split up. So I think it's an opportunity. I think the important point here is it's an opportunity for you for the transitioning service member and the spouse to then have that discussion. Okay, what do we do now? And how can I support you? And like you said, how can we support each other? I think that's a really important conversation for a spouse and a transitioning service member to have.
Well, and I'm glad we just had it here too, Howie, because look, we always joke that 10 out of 10 problems are caused by poor communication. Think about that. My definition of that, and you were absolutely right to question it because I did not explain it well, how you viewed that. And it's like, and these we're three people that agree. You know what I mean?
So we had a healthier way of doing it, I think. That
right.
Yeah.
Right. So you know, again, I think the moral of this story is to everyone listening, these are conversations you want to have well in advance of your separation. If you're already separated, start having them now. It's not too late to start having these conversations. You know, have you ever asked your spouse, do you feel resentment? Do you feel like you haven't had a life? Yeah, and then what can I do to support you with that? And you shouldn't be surprised if the answer is yes. I've been raising kids for 15 years and they've screamed at me every single day, and you've never changed the diaper, and you were off all day. I'm having flashbacks to being a stay-at-home dad now. So that was a fun time. I remember one time joking, and then we'll move on.
Well, I think that's why it's so important, though, and I think we're getting better at it now. At least I sense we're getting better at it now, and thankfully, and we're going to talk about there in a second, because of folks like Teresa who are now building organizations that are now focusing on the military spouse. Is that I think Teresa lost her identity, her purpose, and her community when her husband left the military. We're very conscious of thinking about that for the transitioning service member. We don't always think about that for the spouse. And I'm sure if there were discussions we had with family members, we'd probably get a very similar expression from them that some of them have lost that as well. So I think that's maybe the most important lesson learned here, is that not only is the transitioning service member going through that challenge, the spouse is going through that challenge. And I love the fact that now there are more organizations that are including the spouse in the process of helping them figure out what their purpose, or how they're going to replace their purpose, how they're going to replace their community, how they're going to redefine their identity, because that is just as important for the success of the transition as it is for the men and women in uniform, right?
Mm-hmm. And we as spouses, I can't speak about, all military branches. Naval Special Warfare, very specifically, spouses were taught to kind of, like how Howie said, you didn't know behind the scenes what all the spouses have, what your spouse was taking care of. That's because we didn't tell you. Like we were taught not to complain. He'd be on deployment and call me, and I'd have a very sick baby, and I wouldn't tell him because his job is more important than my job, right? He's out saving the world. I have a sick kid. Like, you keep that to yourself. We always joke that if I was to write a book, which I'm not going to, it'd be called "It Never Happened," because there's so much that happened in my life that he doesn't know about because I didn't tell him. Surgeries, or my kid thought she had meningitis and she doesn't, and I couldn't find him because he had a car accident on deployment. These stories that you just don't tell them because you don't want them to worry about. And they literally say, do not tell your service member things at home because he cannot worry. And that's I totally get that. I mean, he's saving lives, he's doing whatever. But
that's a heavy burden for you and other spouses to shoulder. It really is.
It took me 2.5 years. One day I'm in the kitchen and I'm out saying to myself, okay, I got to get so-and-so somewhere and then pick up. And then I have to, and I'm just talking out loud about my day and how I think I said, I can't be two places at once. And my husband in the background just slowly raises his hand. He's like, no, I live here. I can pick somebody up for you. And I said, oh, right. You're here. Like I can count on you as my date and my spouse and my partner, and I don't need a backup. But that was I had to untrain that in me.
After 20 years, to
learn to ask for help. I still barely, really bad about it. But
so Teresa, it's really clear to me, given all you experienced, then that I really want to spend some time talking about the Pillar Foundation, because I think it's absolutely wonderful what you're doing. So it sounds to me like you gathered all these lessons learned and feelings that you were feeling, and how can I help others? Let's talk about what prompted you to start the Pillar Foundation, what the purpose is, and how you're helping other spouses deal with the challenges that you were able to successfully navigate.
Okay. Our Pillar Foundation's mission is to provide transition assistance to the wives of Naval Special Warfare. So we do that by garnering a database of the sisters sisterhood, if you will, kind of tracking where they are and following the spouse's professional and personal development. So it kind of happens in a few phases. The first step is to try to catch the spouse just before transition. That doesn't need to be retirement per se. And figure out like, hey, Mary, where are you guys going to land? And she goes, oh, we're moving back to Colorado. I don't know anyone there. I go, great. Here's the ladies in Colorado. I'm hosting a retreat. We're bringing them together. Very quick camaraderie and natural resource sharing. Some ladies might have college kids, and we talk about the VA. Some have little kids, and some have empty nesters. You know, you're all in between. But I've got them in the same place, and now they have their community back. And then step 2 of that is if these women are like, what do I do now? So let's provide some executive coaching. We're going to provide endocrine therapy because many of us are going to be in our 40s at this point, and you know, there's things going on. Much like with the guys, the hormones are a big deal. The fight or flight, the adrenal fatigue, that's all happening to the spouses, which I don't think people realize that we will have secondary PTSD just from living with our spouses. I know me personally, I'm hypervigilant for my husband. I keep him out of situations that would aggravate him with noises or echoes or strobes. You know, like we can't go to Vegas, that's fine. But I'm hypervigilant in where he sits at restaurants and if he's going to get triggered, which is, I hate that word, but you know, that we're trained to do that. And that's so uncommon. So having that sisterhood together where you can kind of be in that same place, but more so letting these women figure out what they want to do. Like, let's help you. Let's get an executive coach. Let's talk about your purpose, your passion. Maybe it's just that you want to start a Bible study, and that's fine because now you have the time to do it. Maybe it's, I want to go back and get my degree. That's bigger. Like where, kind of meet the spouses where they are in their world emotionally and in a workplace or physically or whatever they need to kind of succeed is what we do. And that in turn is going to help the family succeed and help the service members succeed. Because if we break down, you know, and what is the saying? If nobody's happy, if mama ain't happy or something like that, you know, if the spouse breaks down, it's just, everyone's going to trickle. And our marriage, civilian marriage is different than what our military marriage looked like. And so there's a lot of resource training on that, mental health education. But I mean, it's, you know, it's totally different. But our divorce rates are really, really high. Our divorce rates in the 90% after transition, which is,
I believe that.
Wow.
That's ridiculous. Like, we just did the hard stuff for 25 years. Why is this harder? Doesn't make any sense, right? Why is this harder?
I think it comes back to what we said too, is you have two people that have supported each other suddenly have a loss of identity, purpose, and community. And look, you said it, you were trained not to bring these problems up.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to break. And I still, we've been out 5-6 years now. Granted, there was a pandemic and my wife's a doctor, so that was like a deployment in itself.
Oh, whoa. But
there are still aspects of the military that kind of creep into our marriage at times of, you know, hey, who's going to the store?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, or who's doing this, who's doing that. And sometimes I have to openly communicate like, hey, you know what, I really can't do that today. I need some help. And that's hard to do. So, you know, again, if you can't communicate, I think that's another thing of it too. If you have a hard time communicating, it's a recipe for disaster. And that is, I didn't know it was 90%. That is way too high.
It's so high.
And we're not doing enough to support these families after the transition.
Right.
So Teresa, how did the spouses, do you find them? Do they find you? Are you tied into the Naval Special Warfare Group? So as people are exiting, you're contacted and I tell me how that works, because I'm interested in how you're able to find these pockets of spouses and create these opportunities for retreats.
So it's all of the above, but it started out with just me putting it on Facebook. I created this I had to get my nonprofit status. And once I had all that, I said, all right, girls, where are you? You know, where are you? Who are you? I know I'm new. You're just going to trust me with this, but fill out this form. Like, I stalk the Facebook pages. Somebody talked about, does my husband's motorcycle ship when we retire? And then I'm like, hello, my name is Teresa. I hear you're retiring. But I found them and I started, you know, tracking them, and then they tell their friends. And then just recently, we were able to get on the Naval Special Warfare list of resources. So we had to go through some legalities for them to vet us.
That's awesome.
Make sure all the ombudsmans know. The transition programs. The Honor Foundation speaks about us on when the spouses come. I went and spoke at the Honor Foundation's dinner in Austin.
Oh, great.
So everyone started to hold hands, which is fantastic because we're not in competition with each other.
Right.
We shouldn't be. Several SEAL Legacy, SEAL Future Foundation will service the service member service. Okay, for SEALs, it's always guys, right? So when we say spouses, they're all women. Service member are all men so far. So the men will go through SEAL Future Foundation. They'll say, hey, tell your wife about Pillar Foundation. She can help you. So it's just spreading. But now, yes, Naval Special Warfare does list us as a resource, which is great. So that I have more need of women. I can service like 100 women a year if I'm on time with them transitioning out. But I'm trying to backtrack and catch the people 4 or 5 years out, make sure they're not fallen. But a lot of it was word of mouth in the beginning. I mean, how does anything start, right? Like you do something well and somebody leaves you a good review, basically. So the ball's rolling. The women know about it, and it's not hard to find spouses that want to participate in the program.
And I assume you have, but have you shared this concept with other spouses to help build it for either the rest of the Navy or other military services? Is there any kind of thought about how to expand this beyond just the Naval Special Warfare group, audience?
Yeah, my goal is to switch over to SOC in general. So it'd be Special Operation Command, anyone that falls under that umbrella. I will probably stay in that lane because that's what I know.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have the Army pick it up. I don't know how that would look, but this is definitely a niche, and it's needed, and it's not happening. I was just at the Military Influencer Conference in Las Vegas. Met a lot of the women that you and I spoke about a couple weeks ago, but the transition was a big topic. Military employment was a big topic. It's happening. It's just going to be slow. It's just like the mental health topic took forever, because of the stigma. So it's going to happen. It's just not going to happen overnight.
But at least the conversations, we're starting to have those conversations. And I think that's important because I think what you're doing here could be such a great model that can be replicated, into the bigger Navy and military community.
Yeah, that would be excellent if it was available to everybody. And I won't turn someone away. I had an Army Ranger wife call me last month, and she just needed some resources, just didn't know where to go. And I'm like, great, I have those for you, because oftentimes the Special Forces is all, they'll treat all. So I'll give her the resources and send her on her way. I can't have her come to retreat, but eventually I can. But I'm not going to turn anybody away. I mean, I'll help you. I'm too much of a helper for that.
So Howie, you want me to pick up where I usually pick up at this point with the book title? Or
Absolutely.
So Teresa, it's funny you mentioned earlier, you said, well, I'm not going to write a book. Well, every guest that comes on this show gets a book title. I create a book title. So if you were going to write a book, I suggest titles to you.
Okay, great.
You did say I wrote this down. It Never Happened is actually that's actually not a bad title. What's your book called? It Never Happened: How I Survived Being a Military Spouse. I've got a few of them here. One of them I wrote down was It's Our Turn. I think that's for the subject matter.
That's the perfect one.
That is a perfect one. And I was going to say It's My Turn as a joke, but It's Our Turn. You can mix these together. It Never Happened. It's Our Turn. That could be the name. The other one, you said this earlier. It's not really a book title. I just, for some reason, I had never heard this, and I'm sure it's been said a lot. But you said, your uniform is your resume. I understand that. Maybe it's, your uniform is not your resume, right? There might be something there too, because you identify through that uniform, and then it's gone. Right. But I don't know. I never had heard that the uniform is resume. I'm sure that is a very commonly used phrase. I just hadn't heard it before. But yeah, I think It's Our Turn would be your book title. I think with the work that you do, it has multiple meanings. It's you as spouses, you as being married. So yeah, It's Our Turn by Teresa Shick. It's coming to a bookstore 2029.
Near you. Well, the other little tagline I use that you'll totally appreciate this, or maybe not because you're Air Force, but maybe Howie, a girl at every port, right? That's negative. A girl at every port. So we're going to start a podcast, and it's called A Girl at Every Port.
That's great.
And so that's when I have my little pod of women. And there's always one lady who comes forward and goes, okay, I loved it. I'm in Florida. How can I help you? And then I'm like, you're the queen of Florida. So we call that A Girl at Every Port.
Right.
Instead of
I
it
love
being
that.
negative, now we're positive. You got a girl everywhere you go.
Yeah, mine's going to be called the lowest rank in the military. Male military spouse, below seaman in the Navy. No, joking aside, to all spouses, regardless of gender, play a massive role in your husband or wife's lives. And again, I think you've done a great job today about speaking about that. And I love that you're creating that community and you're creating that resource, because again, Howie and I believe that community is one of those three pillars. And in doing so, again, you leaned in that community. You knew that was important. In doing so, you found your purpose and identity.
And
You know,
passion, for sure.
but yeah, so it's just, it's one of those things of, we go over this every show, those three things, or the lack of those three things, you know, the lack of them causes depression, massive, or worse. Having one of those missing can be a problem, much less all three. And you created your own community and you're supporting people now. It's unbelievably wonderful work. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. Very, very fulfilling, I have to say.
Yeah. I mean, some people would even straighten their hair to talk about it. I'm just, you know,
I don't know
just
who
gonna
those
say,
people
I don't know who that would be.
No.
But listen, our final question for you today is that at Pivot Moments Media, we're all about mental fitness, mental health, and continually to break that stigma that we talked about. And you're right, it is going in the right direction finally, but we got a long way to go. So one of the questions we like to ask is, what do you do on a daily basis to practice your own mental fitness and your own mental health? You know, what are the things that you do that you can tell our audience that this is how I maintain that?
Okay. I would love to say I sit and meditate every day and give myself that time. I don't sit and properly meditate. I wish I could. I have a hard time turning my brain off. Mine is more writing down my thoughts and what I need to do for the day and what I need to do for me for the day. That was a new deal when we got out, like, oh, I should take care of myself every single day. If that's a bath, which is the least of, you know, the easiest thing I could do, or just have lunch with a friend, or keep the communication flowing. We purposely do date nights once a week, which was
a great idea.
Do.
Yeah. Fantastic idea.
I just had to say out loud to my family, hi, Teresa's going to work, you know, like mommy's going to be gone for a little bit and you guys needed to handle it. But I had to just give myself permission. I did a retreat in Mexico and did a lot of insight therapy before and a lot of work on myself. And then that was had to give myself permission. It's okay to do this for other people and for yourself, and everyone's going to survive. Like, I don't have to be there all the time for everybody. That was really hard for me to let go of that control. So every morning I have to wake up and I sit there and I stretch a little bit and I go, okay, don't forget about yourself today. You know, even if it's just stretching or taking a walk. Really, I try to take a walk every single day and just be silent, which is difficult. But
yeah,
I gotta be with me for, you know.
That's also to let you know, that's also a form of meditation. So,
yeah.
And again, look, we say this all the time. Everyone has a different answer to this question. And the truth is, you got to find what works for you. Like you said, meditation's not for you. That's okay. I have a hard time getting past 2 or 3 minutes when I do it myself, but I do try and be present. And as you said, it is very hard after years or decades, in some cases, of serving someone else to suddenly say, I need to serve myself for a moment. But I can say, and Howie, I'm sure you're going to want to comment on this too, that is absolutely the correct thing to do. You are not selfish for taking some time for yourself. If anything, you're being selfless because you'll be a better mother, father, brother, sister, husband, wife, whatever it is. But the fact you carve that time out for yourself, and like you said, it doesn't seem like it has to be too much, like a shower, a walk, makes a huge difference for you. And I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, and I think it's the same. It's really true of the folks in uniform as well, right?
For
Because
sure.
we're many times we're trained. You take care of the mission, you take care of your people, and you tend to put yourself last. And what I think many of us have learned is, if you don't take care of yourself, and I don't mean that in a selfish way, but if you don't take care of yourself, then you're not going to be able to take care of your people and the mission in the most effective way possible. And Teresa, so when you run these retreats, do you cover this kind of do you talk about these kinds of things and share these kinds of practices as well in the
Yeah.
retreats? I
Oh, yeah.
assume that's got to be a really valuable part of that process.
Right. So we just came off one in San Diego. We were able to go up to the C4 Ranch, which is another nonprofit ranch. We had a Charlie Keating was killed a couple of years ago, and his family opened up this ranch for the SEAL families just as a post and pre-deployment kind of getaway. So they allowed us to come up there, which was amazing. In the mountains of San Diego. It was awesome. But yeah, we brought in a yoga instructor. We brought in some a movement, breath work. There's a mental health aspect of it where she thinks she zoomed in this time, but it doesn't matter. And a lot of it is you're talking about your service member, your spouse, what to expect. How are they going to be around the dinner table? That's not a topic that comes up a lot, but sometimes your spouse is completely present at the dinner table. Sometimes he's yelling at you and he doesn't know why. Sometimes he's on his phone. You just don't know who you're going to get sometimes, certain situations. They bring that up. And just a lot of like what to expect mentally out of you and your spouse and your kids. And then we get to do fun things like we went hiking but yeah, we have little mini sessions built throughout the 4 days.
Great.
Just to kind of keep everybody learning. We don't just go and hang around and drink wine. There's a purpose to be there. There's wine, sure, but there's definitely a purpose, and everyone leaves going, wow, I didn't know this lady lived in my neighborhood, and now they're all having dinner together once a week. But yeah, we bring in all the resources and the different training, and it could just be, let's talk about the VA today because everyone has college age kids, and there's benefits they don't know about. But each retreat looks a little different because it's just the participants.
I love that though. Meet them where they're at, and then you're creating a community for them. Look, I can't undersell the gift of that. You're creating a community for people that desperately need a community.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Oh,
hey, Teresa, are you familiar with John McCaskill? Does that name ring a bell?
Yeah. His meditation for warriors or something like that. I see him on LinkedIn.
John is a retired Navy SEAL commander.
Okay.
Who has an interesting business with with someone who practices meditation and yoga, and they do mindfulness, for men, right?
Yes.
But if you are not connected to John, I'm happy to make a connection. I think you two would have some very interesting opportunities to work together here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because if the women can bring that home to their spouses, honey, I just meditated for the first time. We did breath work in San Diego. I did not participate. I was cooking, but they all came back crying. Like 8 strong Spartan women came back in tears, and they said, "I don't know what just happened to me, but I was crying," and everyone was laughing that they were crying, but they shocked themselves.
Right.
So if you go home and say, "Hey, honey, I tried this. You should try it."
Yeah, just don't tell them you cried. No, I'm just kidding. That's part of it too. That's part of it too. Nothing wrong with crying. Sure. Listen, the truth is have the guts to try something like that. Again, find what works for you. We're not telling anybody you have to do X, Y, or Z. It's you got to find what works for you, but you got to do something.
Yeah.
All right. You got to take care of yourself. So, Teresa, you've been a great guest. It's been fun today. I always enjoy the military spouse episodes, as I said. Not that I don't enjoy the other ones, Howie, but this is nice for me.
Well, listen, I think this is
therapy for me.
This is a very, very important part of the military community that I think we have got to. It's critical that we work on the transitioning service member, but I think it's equally as critical that we work to help the transitioning spouse as well. And this is something I've, as I've spent a little bit more time in this space, I've become much more sensitive to, and I'm just appreciative of the fact that we connected on LinkedIn and had a chance to talk, because I think the work that you're doing, Teresa, is absolutely terrific. And I love the fact that you're so open and candid and transparent and sharing your experiences, so that and that you've gotten through it, but you're helping others go through it as well and do it effectively. I just think it's wonderful what you're doing.
Gosh, thank you. I love it. I
we love it
too. Having me on. I'm happy to reach other people with this podcast too. It's, the more I can do, the more connections that I can be made, that can be made. It's always helpful. I feel like every connection you make there's a reason. So I'll grab anything.
Well, you're doing absolutely incredible work. And again, I'm very glad we got connected and had a chance to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, good. Thank you guys.
Well, if you received as much value from this episode as I know we did, make sure to share it. Like you just said, share it with a friend, like, subscribe, leave us a review on whichever podcast platform you listen to us on. We love you for being here and listening each week. And if you'd like to contact us directly with a question, comment, guest recommendation, if you need someone to speak to about your transition, mental struggles, or experience, you can email us at howie@pivotalmomentsmedia.com or DM us directly on social media. We'd love to hear from you. Teresa, I'm going to throw it back to you. How can people get in contact with you real quick, too? Because I'm sure there's spouses listening and saying, I need to talk to her. I need to breathe and cry and talk to this lady.
Come to me. No, our website is easy. It's thepillarfoundation.com. So www.thepillarfoundation.com. There's a contact form on there. The easiest way would be fill out that contact form. It comes straight to me, and then I go straight back to you.
Love it.
But that's really the easiest way, and then I can figure out what I can do for you.
Well, and she will, you can tell, do something for you. So
and if you feel like you want to be a donor, that's great too. We always need people who provide the services, right? The yoga, the nutrition, the wellness, accommodations, because I got to house these people somewhere. So anything, if you feel like you want to help out, I'll fit you in somewhere.
No, I love it. And again, we're going to make sure we put that with the show notes that people can reach out to you. And again, it's all going to be on pivotalmomentsmedia.com. And remember, we have other channels on there that deal with sports, how inspirational women inspire the women. We're talking to one of them right now. Building mental fitness in the workplace, how artists of all types can overcome adversity and strengthen their mental fitness. We also have our mental fitness education center for more inspirational, educational, and entertaining content. Excuse me. Teresa, I have a feeling this isn't going to be the last time we talk, but I got to say, thank you so much for being here. Howie, always love doing this with you. I'm Lee Elias. Again, thanks so much to everybody for listening. We'll see you next time on Life After the Military.